3-2 triangle congruence. By SSS, SAS, AAS, and ASA. And today's date is the 30th. All right, triangle congruence by, do you guys know what these letters mean? I heard somebody whisper. What is SSS? Side, side, side. What do you think this one, now that you know that side, 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 this would be side, angle, side, angle, angle, side, and angle, side, angle. Notice here on these two, they both have two A's and one S. Do you see that? Two A's and one S. Since they're written separately, do you think the placing of the letters, the order matters? Does it matter if the S is in the middle or at the end? Yes. All right, so the order does matter. I do need you guys listening. And a quick reminder, phones shouldn't be out during class. Thank you for those of you that have been listening and keeping them put away during class time. All right, so away, off the desk, away. Okay, we know from prior classes that if you have two triangles, triangle ABC, and it is congruent to triangle XYZ. You guys have seen this symbol before, yes? The congruent symbol? Okay, you know that if two triangles are congruent, let's draw our pictures first. I'm going to call this one A, B, C, and I'm going to call the second one X, Y, Z. Okay, well, let me ask you first, what do we know about triangles that are congruent? They are what? They're congruent, they are equal, they are the same. What do we know about corresponding angles? For example, what would A's corresponding angle be? And how do we know? X. All right, how do we know that? Do you see the A is first and the X is first? That means those two angles are corresponding. What is B's corresponding angle? Y. And what is C's corresponding angle? Z. So we know that corresponding angles are congruent. So A is congruent to X, B is congruent to Y, and C is congruent to Z. Now, are all angles congruent all over the place? So can I say that A is congruent to Y? Or does it have to be its corresponding angle? It's corresponding. It could be congruent to Y if these two angles were congruent, then yes, that would work. But all we know for sure is that corresponding angles are congruent to each other. All right, so let's go ahead and write this down. Then, corresponding angles are congruent. And you will have problems where you have to list them, where you have to list the corresponding angles that are congruent. All right, so we're going to have this angle A is congruent to which angle? We had it up here. Angle A is congruent to which angle? X. Angle B is congruent, it's the middle one, so it's congruent to which angle? Y. And angle Z is congruent, I'm sorry, angle C. Angle C is congruent to which angle? Z. So can you come up with these congruent statement, this angle congruency statement without the picture? Could you just use A with X, B with Y, and C with Z? Yes. All right, the picture helps, and you can use the picture as well. AX, BY, CZ. Okay, what else do we know about corresponding sides? Are corresponding sides also congruent? Yes or no? Yes. All right, what is AB's corresponding side? It's the first two letters in this statement. So AB's corresponding side is what? XY, that means they're congruent. BC is the last two letters. What is BC's corresponding side over here? YZ. Does it make sense, for example, I have this one tick mark between my single and a double, and over here it's the same thing, one tick mark between the single angle marking and the double. Do you see that? The two tick marks between the two tick marks between the double and the triple angle. All right, that leaves AC congruent to what? To X what? Z. AC is the first and the last, and XZ is the first and the last. Will it always work out that way? Yes. Okay, so we can write here, and corresponding sides are congruent. And corresponding sides are congruent. So I'm going to write the first set for you, AB, BC, and AC, and I want you to write their congruent sides here, the corresponding sides. Do we have it? Okay. So, Cesar, can you tell me what AB is congruent to? Oh, sorry. XY. Good job. Diego, can you tell me what BC is congruent to? YZ. Does everyone agree? Good. And Danielle, can you give me the last one? XC. Okay, questions on this corresponding sides or corresponding angles are congruent and corresponding sides are congruent. Questions? Okay, what I'm going to spend some time discussing is this here, the SSS, the SAS, the AAS, and the ASA, because this is where most kids struggle on the test. Okay, so let's just quickly write down what they stand for. SSS, SAS, bless you, AAS, and ASA. All right. What did you guys say for SSS? Side, side, side. And what is SAS? Side, angle, side. Good, write that down. And go ahead and write down the other two. We said them earlier. Remember, we did say what they were. See if you can write them down from memory. All right, check with your neighbors, see if you guys have the same thing written down. Check, talk, share, compare. Okay. AAS, Caitlin, what is it? Oh, angle, side, yes. I got carried away with my A's. Okay, angle, side. Do you guys agree with her? And Wayne, what's the next one? Yes. Angle, side, angle. All right, do you guys agree? All right, we'll need to have those memorized. Okay, so what we're going to do next is I'm just going to show you just one triangle, and we're just going to try to figure out which one of these to use. So determine, again, we're trying to start small, determine what type of information is given. Using these up here. All right, number one. If I gave you markings like this, would you say that is side, 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 angle, side, angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle? When you read it, you start at one piece and read around. For example, I cannot jump from here across and over. You have to go in order either this way or this way. It doesn't matter as long as I'm not jumping around. Side, angle, side is what he said. Do you guys agree? Okay, in order to be side, angle, side, the angle has to be included, is the math word that you will see on your homework today. It has to be included between the two sides. I will sometimes call it sandwiched or squished or in between. The angle has to be sandwiched between the two side markings. Is this angle sandwiched between those two side markings? Yes? Okay, number 2. Okay, so taking a look, how many angle markings do I have? 2. And how many side markings? 1. Okay, how many up here have 2 A's and 1 S? 2. Does the order matter? Okay, on this one, the side is what? Between the, it's in the middle, it's sandwiched, it's included. On this one, is the side sandwiched? It cannot be sandwiched. Okay, so let's look here. Is this side sandwiched or not sandwiched between those two angle markings? Sandwiched or not? Not. So is it okay to say angle, side, angle? No. Saying that is wrong because using the angle, side, angle is telling me the side is sandwiched. For example, right there. Would that be angle, side, angle?
Yeah.
This one would be angle, side, angle. Do you see that? Again, just recognizing how to read it. So what is this? Angle, angle, side. Now I'll have kids say, well, I can do this, angle, side, angle. Or they'll say angle, side, angle. Can I jump across like this? There's no jumping. You're reading in order from this angle to this angle to this side. Now I had a young lady in my 4th period say, could I call it side, angle, angle? Is that okay? Yes, the order matters, but if you're just, instead of reading it forward, you're reading it backwards, that is okay. And that's really the only one that matters because this one backwards is the same thing, this one backwards is the same thing, and that one's backwards is the same thing. So that's the only one. If you put SAA, that is okay. All right, number 3. Don't do any talking, just write down an answer. So, how many angle markings? 2. How many side markings? So that leaves us again with these 2. Does the order matter? Okay. Is the side sandwiched or not sandwiched between the 2 angles? It is. So AAS or ASA? ASA. Why? Because the side is included in the middle. It's in the middle. It's sandwiched between those 2 angles. Does it make sense? Kind of, sort of. Okay, let's try a few more. Questions here before I flip this over. Okay, number 4. All right, I'm going to quickly, I'll just write it up here in pencil so you can see them. Our choices were SSS, SAS, AS, and ASA. All right, how many side markings do I have? How many side markings do I have? 2. And how many angle markings? 1. Up here, there's only one that has 2 sides and 1 angle. Which one is that? SAS? Now, in order to use this, what can we say about the angle? It must be what? In the middle, sandwich, included. Is the angle sandwiched between those 2 angle markings? Yes or no? No. Do you guys agree? All right. So, is there any other ones? Do we have an SSA? Is that one of our choices? No. No, we do not. SSA or ASS, however you think of it, is not one of the ones we use. There is a special case where SSA is allowed. We'll see that next week, but we don't call it SSA. We have a special name for it. We'll see that next week. What is that? Yes, but we don't call it that. There's a special name we have for it because it's using a special triangle. So it's possible, but only with a very special triangle. Anybody know what kind of special triangle that is? A right triangle. On a right triangle, it's allowed. So, really quick note, I'm going to flip my page over. Up here, I'm going to write down that which 2, well, 1 for now, we'll have another one. Which one is not allowed? SSA is not allowed, so I'm going to put an X through it. Unless it's a right triangle, and we'll see those next week. All right, there is one more. We'll write it down after we keep going. Okay, so we'll put here not enough info. I'll need another angle or another side over here or another angle marking in there. Right there, the way it's given, it's none of these. All right, number 5. All right, what is this? Side, side, side. Does everybody agree? There's no angle markings. They're all sides. SSS. All right, number 6. I'll let you guys try that one on your own. That's the other one that's not allowed. Very good. All right. How many angle markings? How many side markings? That leaves us with this one. Is the side included or not included? Is the side included or not included? Not. So AAS or ASA? AAS. All right. 7. Gentlemen, I need you guys to stop the goofing around, please. All right. What is it? AAA. Do we have an AAA as an option? No. So we're going to put here not enough info. I need some angle or side markings in there. Not enough info. So I'm going to flip my page back to the front. And what is this next one I'm going to add for the other one that's not allowed? It was SSA and now what? AAA. So no AAA, no backwards donkey when we're doing these problems. So if you can remember that, everything else is okay. This one here is only allowed on special triangles, and we'll see that next week. Okay. Number 8. Okay, what is it? SAS. Okay, let's see if it's SAS. I have 2 sides and 1 angle. That leaves me with this. The only way I can use this is if the angle is what? Included or not included? And is it included? How long is this, Doris? Yes. Okay, questions? All right, now what we're going to do next is, do you agree so far they haven't been that bad? Like you're probably thinking, like, why are we doing this? It's so easy. When you're comparing it to 2 triangles at the same time is where it starts to get tricky. So let's take a step back. What did we say about congruent triangles? Their corresponding angles are congruent and their corresponding sides are congruent. So when we're trying to prove, and we will work with proofs, when we're trying to prove that triangles are congruent, it's going to take a really long time because we have to prove that every angle is congruent, and then we have to prove that every corresponding side is congruent, and that takes a while. So mathematicians before us have come up with shortcuts, and that's these shortcuts here. If you can prove that 2 triangles have corresponding sides that are congruent, or corresponding side angle sides, or angle side, or angle side angle, you can say the 2 triangles are what? Congruent. All right, so let's start off with one. Use of the same SSS, SAS, AAS, ASA, or not enough info. Okay. So underneath it, put one of the 3 letters or not enough info. All right, which one is it? I hear a whisper side, side, side. I heard a whisper not enough info. Do I have any angle markings? Okay, there's only one up there that has no angle markings. Which one is it? SSS. Okay, do I have this set of corresponding sides that are congruent? This set? And what about that set? So can we say side, side, side? Yes. Okay, number 2. This next one is a tricky one that kids will often miss on quizzes or tests, so you want to be careful. What do you think the most common wrong answer is for this one? Side, side, side. Does it look like side, side, side? Did anybody think it was side, side, side when you first saw it? No? Some of you said no, that you weren't tricking me. Can anybody explain why it's not side, side, side? The sides aren't equal. Be more specific, because I can see right here that these 3 are equal to each other. Okay, you're saying that it's equal to the, not to the same triangle. What were you going to say?
The markings are off.
The markings are off. Okay, in order for us to use side, 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 you guys are right. The corresponding sides have to be congruent from one triangle to the other. There's congruent markings, but is it to itself or to each other? To itself. And is that the way congruent triangles work? No, they have to be congruent to each other. So yes, there's congruent markings here, but it's to itself. Yes, there's congruent markings here, but it's to itself. Is this an equilateral triangle, the first one? All sides are equal. Is this an equilateral triangle? The second one, all sides are equal. Are they congruent to each other? No. This side could be 3, 3, 3, and this side could be 4, 4, 4. They're not congruent to each other. Okay, so we're going to write not enough info. That question comes up on your assignment later today, like explain not enough info. So what would we say? They are not congruent to each other. They're congruent to themselves, but not to each other. All right. Number 3. Draw this bow tie looking shape. All right. How many congruent side markings do I have? How many sets? 2. This is one set and this is a second set. Do you guys agree? Are there any angle markings? So it looks like not enough info, but can anybody tell me what angle marking I'm allowed to put in? And I'm not always allowed to just throw angle markings in because I want to, but the centerpiece, these 2 here, what are those called? Vertical. Are vertical angles congruent? So if they didn't tell us that, if they didn't mark it, should we know that it's still true? Okay, I'm going to put a note here. Vertical angles are congruent. So there will be times where they don't tell us or they don't mark it for us, but should we know? Yes. All right. So now I have still 2 sets of congruent side markings. How many sets of congruent angle markings? 1. What do I have for 2 S's and 1 A? Do I have only 1? This one here? In order to use this, the angle has to be what? In the middle, included, sandwiched. Is this angle sandwiched? I'm going to cover this guy. Is that angle sandwiched between those 2 sides? Is that angle sandwiched between those 2 sides? Yes, so what would we say? SAS. questions? Okay, next one. And this, knowing that you can put those markings because vertical angles are congruent, you'll need to know that when we do our proof page later today. All right, I'm going to give you more markings here. I'm going to give you that this corner is congruent to this top left corner, and that corner is congruent to the top right corner. How many sets of congruent angle markings do I have? One set here, one set here. Do I have any side markings? Now, because I want to, and I'm like, oh, I need side markings, is it okay if I just did something like that? No, I can't just throw side markings in just because I feel like it. But there are times where I can, for example, like those angle markings I was allowed to do. Is there a side the two triangles share? Do they share this diagonal? So can I say that this long side here for the top triangle is the same length as the long side here for the bottom triangle? Yes or no? So can I put a marking in there and say that it's congruent right there? Yes. That is called the reflexive property. Do any of you remember that from last year? Reflexive property is anything equals itself. 5 equals 5, x equals x, 3 equals 3. This side is congruent to this side. Do you agree it's congruent to itself? Yes? Okay. Now I have two angle markings, two sets, and one side. That leaves me with these two. Is that one side included between the two angles or not included? Is that side, you can cover the top of it, that helps you. Is that side sandwiched between the two angle markings, yes or no? Yes, so what would we say? Angle, side angle. Does anybody feel like it's getting a little harder? No comment? Yes, yes it is. All right, number 5, let's try another one. How many sets of angle markings do I have? How many sets? 2. One set, second set. First, a second. Is that enough to say anything? Okay, so look, are there vertical angles or is there a reflexive side? Do you agree they share this side? All right, so I can put a marking there for the same reason as over there. Reflexive property is why that is equal. Okay, how many angle markings do I have? And how many side markings? 1. Angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side? Is that side sandwiched between the two angle markings? Yes or no? No. So what would I use? AAS. Are we good? Okay, number 6. We are going to make another bow tie. How many sets of angle markings, congruent angle markings do I have? How many sets? Marked already, marked on the picture. How many sets marked? Just the one. How many sets of side markings do I have? 1. What can I add? A vertical angle or a reflexive side? Do you guys agree I can mark vertical angles? And it's okay to mark them because we know all vertical angles are congruent. All right. Oh, I messed up. Can anybody tell me where I messed up? On my markings right here. What is that?
You didn't put 2 on?
Why do I have to put 2? I often get that question. Yes.
Because there's already single ones.
There's already a single one. If I put a single one, I'm saying that these are also congruent to those. Is that, do we know that? No. So I do need to put double angle markings in there. Okay. I'm going to look here. How many angle markings do I have? 2. How many side markings do I have? 1. Is that side sandwiched or not? Is it included or not included? So what would I say? ASA. All right. We have just a few more and we are done. Can I flip the page? Okay, number 7. All right, I'm going to have you try this one on your own. Can I put another marking in there? What can I mark? Vertical angles, because we know vertical angles, all vertical angles are congruent. Side angle side? Yes or no? Did I hear anyone say no? I'm not sure if I'm hearing a no. I'm hoping I'm hearing a no. Thank you. It is a no. Anyone know why? Yes.
Because the sides aren't congruent on both angles, they're just ones that are.
Okay, so the sides are not congruent to each other. They are congruent to themselves. Is it kind of like that one that we had earlier? This one here. They're congruent to themselves, but not to each other. Yes or no? All right, so yes, there's congruent markings, but are they congruent to each other? No. So what would we say here? Not enough. Not enough. That's fine. He said any eye. Yes, not enough info. We have to explain why. They will ask you to do that today on your assignment. They are what? Not congruent to each other. They're congruent to themselves, but not congruent to each other. Now, I don't want you to confuse that with something like number 8, because something like number 8 is on the test and kids struggle with it. Okay, and then these markings are given. And those are the only markings given. Is there any markings that I can add? Reflexive side or vertical angles? Okay, I'm going to put 2 markings because those already have 1. And then kids will say not enough info. And the kids will say not enough info because they see here that these are congruent to themselves. Are they congruent to themselves? Yes, but they also happen to be congruent to the other. So, is this side, side, side?
Yes.
Yes. Kids are like, oh, but no, because they're congruent to themselves. Yes, but this congruent to themselves also happens to be congruent to those 2 over there. So, can we say side, side, side? Yes. So, be careful with that one on the test as well. Side, side, side. All right, questions? No questions? Yes.